Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Charine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vishakadesha Tarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, chapter 14, the system of universal management, text 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 4 texts we have today. Translations purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Rajovacha Manvantarishu Bhagavan Yatha manvadayastvime Yasmin karmani yena Niyuktastat vadasvame Sri Rajovacha Manvantarishu Bhagavan Yatha manvarayastvime Yasmin karmani yena Niyuktastat vadasvame Sri Rajovacha Manvantarishu Bhagavan Yatha manvayadasyatime Yasmin karmani yena Niyuktastat vadasvame Sri Raja Uvacha King Parikshit said Manvantareshu in the reign of each Manu Bhagavan, O great sage, Yatha, as Manu Adayaha, the Manus and others, to but Ime, these Yasmin, in which Karmani, activities Ye, which persons Yena, by whom Niyukta, appointed Tat, that Vadasma, kindly describe Me, to me. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, O most opulent Shukadeva Goswami, please explain to me how Manu and the others in each Manvantara are engaged in their respective duties and by whose order they are so engaged.
ангажирани в своите съответни задължения традиции, по чия заповед те са толкова ангажирани.
Text 2. Shri Rishi Ruvacha Manavo Manu Putrascha Munayascha Mahipate Indra Suraganashchaiva Sarve Purusha Shashanaha. Shukadeva Goswami said, the Manus, the sons of Manu, the great sages, the Indras, and all the demigods, O king, are appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various incarnations, such as Yagya.
Текст 2. Превод Шукадева Госвами каза: Манусите, синовете на Ману, великите мъдреци, Индра и всички богове от Сириус са назначени от Върховната Божествена личност в своите различни инкарнации, както Яги.
Text 3. Yagyadayoya katita paurushya stanavonripa manvadayo jagat jatrang nanyantyabi prachoditaha. O king, I have already described to you various incarnations of the Lord, such as Yagya. The Manus and the others are chosen by these incarnations, under whose direction they conduct the universal affairs.
Текст 3. О, царю, вече съм описал различните инкарнации на Бога, като Ягя, Манус и другите са избрани от тези инкарнации, под чието управление те извършват своите вселенски дейности.
Text, the purport. The Manus execute the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various incarnations.
Коментара. Манус изпълняват заръките на Върховната Божествена личност в неговите различни инкарнации.
Text 4. Chatur yugante kalena grasthan shruti ganan yata tapasa rishayo pashyan yato dharmak sanatanaha. At the end of every 4 yugas, the great saintly persons, upon seeing that the eternal occupational duties of mankind have been misused, re-establish the principles of religion.
В края на всеки 4 юги, великите святи личности, виждайки, че вечните задължения на човечеството е злоупотребено с тях, установяват повторно принципите на религията.
Purport. In this verse, the words Dharma and Sanatana are very important.
Коментар в този стих, думите Dharma и Sanatana са много важни.
Sanatana means eternal and Dharma means occupational duties.
Sanatana означава вечен, а Dharma означава предписани задължения.
From Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga, the principles of religion and occupational duty gradually deteriorate.
От Сатя Юга до Кали Юга принципите на религията и предписаните задължения постепенно се разпадат.
In Satya Yuga, the religious principles are observed in full without deviation.
В Сатя Юга религиозните принципи се спазват напълно без никакви отклонения.
In Treta Yuga, however, these principles are somewhat neglected and only 3/4 of the religious duties continue.
В Трета Юга обаче тези принципи са по някакъв начин неглижирани и само 3/4 от религиозните задължения продължават.
In Dvapara Yuga, only half of the religious principles continue, and in Kali Yuga, only 1/4 of the religious principles, which gradually disappear.
Dvapara Yuga само половината от религиозните принципи продължават, а в Кали Юга само 1/4 от религиозните принципи, които всъщност постепенно изчезват.
At the end of Kali Yuga, the principles of religion or the occupational duties of humanity are almost lost.
И в края на Кали Юга принципите на религията или на предписаните задължения на човечеството са почти изгубени.
Indeed, in this Kali Yuga we have passed through only 5,000 years, yet the decline of Sanatan Dharma is very prominent.
Наистина в тази Кали Юга ние сме изминали само през 5000 години, но все пак опадъкът на Санатана Дарма е много ясен.
The duty of saintly persons, therefore, is to take up seriously the cause of Sanatan Dharma and try to re-establish it for the benefit of the entire human society.
Дългът на светите личности поради това е да предприемат сериозно казата на Санатана Дарма и да се опитат да представят отново, да я представят наново, да я осъществят отново в името на ползите на цялото човечество.
The Krishna consciousness movement has been started according to this principle.
Движението за Кришна съзнание е основано според този принцип.
As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.51.
Както е казано в Шримад Бхагаватам 12.3.51.
Kalya doshanide rajan astyeko mahan gunaha kirtanat eva krishnasya mukta sangha parangrajet. The entire Kali Yuga is full of faults. It is like an unlimited ocean of faults.
Цялата Кали Юга е пълна с грешки. Тя е като неограничен океан от грешки.
But the Krishna consciousness movement is very authorized.
Но движението за Кришна съзнание е много авторитетно.
Therefore, following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who 500 years ago inaugurated the movement of Sankirtan, Krishna Kirtan, we are trying to introduce this movement according to superior orders all over the world.
Ето защо, следвайки стъпките на Шри Чайтаня Махапрабху, който преди 5000 години основава движението за Санкиртан, Кришна Киртан, ние се опитваме да представим това движение според върховните заръки в целия свят.
Now, if the inaugurators of this movement strictly follow the regulative principles and spread this movement for the benefit of all human society, they will certainly usher in a new way of life by re-establishing Sanatan Dharma, the eternal occupational duties of humanity.
Сега, ако всички в това движение стрикно спазват регулиращите принципи и разпространяват това движение в полза на цялото човечество, те определено ще въведат нов начин на живот чрез повторно установяване на Санатана Дарма, вечните предписани задължения на човечеството.
The eternal occupational duty of the human being is to serve Krishna.
Вечните предписани задължения на човешкото същество е да служи на Кришна.
Jiva Swarup Hoy Krishna Nitya Das. This is the purport of Sanatan Dharma.
Това е целта на Санатана Дарма.
Sanatan means Nitya or eternal, and Krishna Das means servant of Krishna.
Санатана означава Нитя или вечен, а Кришна Das означава слуга на Кришна.
The eternal occupational duty of the human being is to serve Krishna. This is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement.
Вечните предписани задължения на човешките същества са да служат на Кришна. Това е основното, това е в центъра на движението за Кришна съзнание.
Chatur yugante kalena grasthan shruti gananyata tapasarishayo pashyantiyato dharma sanatanaha. At the end of every 4 yugas, the saintly great saintly persons, upon seeing that the eternal occupational duties of mankind have been misused, re-establish the principles of religion.
В края на всеки 4 юги, великите светли личности, виждайки, че с вечните предписани задължения на човечеството е злоупотребено, просто установяват повторно принципите на религията.
So, there are eternal occupational duties.
И така има вечни предписани задължения.
We would like to be free from all duties, no duty.
Ами искаме да сме освободени от всички тях.
Yes.
Задълженията.
So this was one of these, objections or doubts we heard the other day, that why we have to surrender and serve God. We don't want necessarily to do that.
Това беше едно от възраженията, които чухме преди няколко дни. Ние искаме да се отдаваме и да служим на Бога.
Then we are like slaves.
Защото тогава ще сме като роби.
And who wants to be a slave?
Кой иска да е роб?
You're crazy. Whoever said, oh, I like to be a slave, with me. That means some mental issue.
Който каже, че иска да е роб, значи, че има някакви отклонения психични.
We already mentioned the dominant principle, so this is there. I mean, people who are mentally not quite all right, they like this. Otherwise, otherwise we want to be free and do whatever we want. So, Sanatan Dharma is completely contradicting this conception. So, Dharma is here translated as occupational duty. And there are different translations, of course. Sometimes it's just translated as religion or religiosity. Or also as religious principle. And as an intrinsic characteristic of something. Intrinsic characteristic. Which is you could say, the philosophical definition of the word. Srila Prabhupada gives various examples of this, and we can expand examples unlimitedly. The dharma of sugar is to be sweet. And the dharma of chili is to be hot. Or of fire to have heat and light. And the jiva also has a dharma. It has a quality that is there, and it's just, you cannot take it away, you cannot change it. And that is das, servant. But we can choose who or what to serve. That is within our power. So we can choose whose slave do we want to be. But you have to be a slave because that's your dharma. So therefore, The objection, yes, I understand the objection, but sorry, it's unchangeable.
Да, разбирам възражението, но то не може да се промени.
You can forget it, that's possible.
Може да го забравим, да, това е възможно.
But still you're going to be a slave unconsciously.
Да, пак ще бъда уробен несъзнателно.
And Maya is so kind, she makes you think that you are in charge and are the master, but actually you are a slave.
Майя е много така добра за това, че кара да мисли, че сме в властта си, но това не е така.
So, in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives many examples of this, and we can observe it in our own life and in the lives of others.
Въведението към Бхагавад Гита Прабхупад дава много примери за това и може да също така да разбираме и примерът на нашия собствен живот.
Even those who want to be leaders of society, they have to canvass for votes, and they offer themselves as the servants, public servants of the people.
Дори кандидатите за властта, те събират гласове и се
Обещава, че ще служат на обществото.
да, обещават, че ще служат на обществото.
So they are actually, the official title is to be a public servant, right?
И всъщност официалният термин е обществен служител.
And if it's not public, then you serve your family.
И ако не е на обществото, тогава служи на семейството.
And if you don't have a family, then you serve a dog.
Или ако няма семейство, може да служи на кучето.
That is, you can also observe. The master has the dog on a leash.
Да, също и кучето служи.
But he goes after the dog.
Господаря държи каишката на кучето, ама го следва. Той не служи.
Yes, when the dog wants to go somewhere, you go with the dog.
Когато кучето отиде някъде и ти отиваш с кучето.
The dog stops,
Кучето спира.
sniffing around,
Виж някакви неща.
raising the leg,
Дига се кръка.
and you are waiting
Чакаш.
and looking once in a while. Are you finished?
И гледаш си, питаш, свърши ли вече.
And then finally, there's a strong pull, and the poor dog. So but nobody wants to be obeying somebody else, but we have to.
Накрая да пуши кучето и тръгваш. Никой не иска да се подчинява на някой, но е така.
So the Sanatan Dharma is to be a servant.
Саната на Дharma, това означава да се слуга.
Here it is said that it's the constant companion of the living entity.
И тук се казва, че тя е постоянен другар на човешкото същество.
So, because the jiva is part and parcel of Krishna, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita,
Понеже джива е неотделима частица от Кришна, казва в Бхагавад Гита.
and it's jiva bhuta sanatana, that's eternally a fact. You cannot change that either.
Факт, който е вече не може да се промени.
Yeah, we may not like the idea that I'm part and parcel of this Krishna, but what can you do? This is how it is.
Да не ни харесва това, че сме частици от Кришна, но
Yeah.
това е така, няма какво да се направи.
Like we mentioned, this French philosopher, he was protesting. He didn't like the idea that he was living, that he was existing.
Да, един френски философ, той не му харесва идеята, че живее, че съществува.
Yeah, you think about it, why do I exist? I don't want to be. But you are. What to do?
Се замислям, да, не искам да съществувам, но аз съм тук, какво да направя.
No? Sometimes, I think Prabhupada says, why am I here? This question arises when the situation is really intolerable.
Правопатите е казвам, защо съм тук, когато ситуацията е непоносима.
So you want to disappear. No, but how can you disappear? Even if you try.
Да, може да искаме да изчезна, но как да стане? Няма как.
If you're ignorant, you think just by killing yourself you disappear.
Ако си невеж, може
But then we have a bad news for you. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamani sharire. You may kill the body, but you will continue to exist. So, therefore, the best finally is to accept one's reality. So, I am a servant, I am a slave, now I can choose to who. Now in English we can play around. You can be a servant of the dog or of God. Just change 2 letters. So to be Krishna's servant, that's actually the Swarupa, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. We heard this quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Swarupa, that's the one's real identity or form. Because right now, yes, we are identifying with the body that is not the Swarupa, that's an Ananya Rupa, that's a different type of form. Yeah, so that will change. And then the so-called Dharma will also change. Is sometimes called Sva-Dharma, which refers to the particular body one has at a certain time. According to the different positions in society, you may have the Dharma of a Kshatriya, or of a Shudra, or of a Brahmana, or a woman, Stri Dharma. So these are all Dharmas that will change. Or Stri, woman, a particular Dharma. So that is not Sanatan. Obviously, because it's changing. So Sanatan is eternal, that doesn't change. So, therefore, to serve Krishna, therefore in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will say that Sarva Dharma and Parityaja, meaning all these other dharmas which pertain to the body, you give them up. Which doesn't mean now I'm without Dharma. Dharma less. Our Western mind may argue, well, Sarva Dharma means all Dharma, so that means no more Dharma. So Krishna says, Mamekam Sharanam, that is the only Dharma left over. Everything else is you give up, and this is the one that's there because it's eternal. So therefore, we may say it's natural. It's nothing artificial to be a servant of Krishna. So we can read part of a purport 2.2.36, second canto, second chapter, verse 36. There, Prabhupada says, because the Lord is all-pervading, it is essential to glorify Him always and everywhere. Mm-hmm. Hope you find it. There will be also Sanatan Dharma and Bhagavad Dharma mentioned.
2.36.
2.2.36. So, because the Lord is all-pervading, it is essential to glorify Him always and everywhere. Otherwise you can just by hearing. Or maybe meanwhile you can translate that. She's looking for it.
Понеже Богът е всепроникващ, дълг е да го възхваляваме винаги и навсякъде.
Got it?
Yes.
In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restriction of time and space.
И в процеса на възпяване на Бога няма ограничение на времето и на пространството.
This is called Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma.
Това се нарича Санатана Дharma или Бхагават Дharma.
Sanatan means eternal, always and everywhere.
Санатана означава вечен, винаги навсякъде.
And Bhagavat means pertaining to Bhagavan, the Lord.
Бхагават означава Бхагаван, на Бхагаван или Бога.
So these are synonymous. If you speak about Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma, it's the same thing.
Това са синоними. Санатана Дharma или Бхагават Дharma.
Like Prahlad Maharaj tells his classmates about Bhagavad Dharma.
Както Пралад Махарадж казва на своите съученици за Бхагават Дharma.
So the Lord is the master of all time and all space.
Богът е господар на цялото време и пространство.
And therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified and remembered everywhere in the world.
И затова святото име на Бога трябва да бъде слушано, възпявано и помнено навсякъде по света.
That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the world.
Това ще донесе желаните мир и благополучие, които са толкова чакани и желани от хората в света.
So meanwhile we continue to talk about this. You can look for 4:28:61. So this is very logical.
Това е много логично.
If we accept that God is all-pervading and everywhere in this, then the glorification should be everywhere and always.
Ако Бог е навсякъде всепроникващ, трябва да го възхваляваме винаги навсякъде.
Yeah, because normally we have our life, we say, and then on Sunday we may dedicate maximum 1 hour to think about the Lord and glorify the Lord. You have? But, okay.
Да, може да прекараме някакво време, нали, 1 час в неделя да мислим за да възпяваме Бога.
Yeah, so this Dharma, this Sanatan Dharma, or let's call it religion or religious principle, is not just one little, maybe very small part of my life.
Санатана Дharma, това не е някаква малка част от живота.
Which generally is the case. We have so many other interests, and then, well, God and serving God or talking about God or singing His glories, maybe once in a while I can do it, but otherwise I'm very busy.
Да, това може да е някаква малка част от живота ни, тъй като това може от време на време да го правя, но иначе съм много ред.
But it means always and everywhere. And of course this glorification does not mean only singing with musical instruments. It means speaking about Krishna, thinking about Krishna, or dedicating one's activities to spreading the glories of the Lord. This is all in the category of Sanatan Dharma. So in 4:28:61, Prabhupada says that the word Sanatan is found in several places in Bhagavad Gita. And let's think about some verses where we have Sanatan. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. And
Kirta Satatam. Okay.
no, it's almost the same. Almost. parastasmat vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha. So, you have it. So, the word sanatan we find it in several places of Bhagavad Gita. Both the Lord and the living entity are sanatana, eternal. And there's also a place known as sanatana that is beyond this material nature. The real residence of both the living entity and God is the domain of sanatana, not this material world. The material world is the temporary external energy of the Lord. And the living entity is placed in this material world because he wanted to imitate the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, he tries to enjoy his senses to his best capacity. All the activities of the conditioned soul within this material world are perpetually taking place in different types of bodies. But when the living entity acquires developed consciousness, then he should try to rectify his situation and again become a member of the spiritual world. So membership is open, you can apply and you get your card, eternally. Yes, you can be a candidate. So the process, now we hear the process, how you do this. The process by which one can apply for this membership, return home back to Godhead, is Bhakti Yoga, sometimes called Sanatan Dharma. Now we have three synonyms, that's the word. Sanatan Dharma, Bhagavad Dharma, Bhakti Yoga. Yes, instead of accepting a temporary occupational duty based on the material body, one should take to the process of Sanatan Dharma, Bhakti Yoga, so that he can put an end to this perpetual bondage in material bodies and return home back to Godhead. As long as human society works on the basis of false material identification, all the so-called advancements of science and philosophy are simply useless. They only serve to mislead human society. Anda yatandaya upaniyamana. In the material world, the blind simply lead the blind.
водят след.
We don't like that. Why you say this is useless? I mean, this is pretty useful. Yes. So this is, of course, from the higher angle of vision. Like we have to consider the so-called prayers and shreyas. Prayers and shreyas. Prayers is an immediate usefulness or benefit, and shreyas is ultimate benefit or usefulness.
Preyas znači nezabavna полза, а shreyas крайната полза и цялата.
Like he wouldn't like now to sit down and read a book. He likes to play with a little plastic bottle. If we try to exchange this for a book, he will protest. No, I like to play, I don't want to read. Even though the reading may provide me knowledge which may be useful in the future, but now I don't want that. Right? Yes. Silence means I agree. So, this is our situation, not just his situation. We all want certain benefits which are practically very soon or immediate. Not long-term, within, end of the life, then we may think of Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. Maybe. This is like, who knows? But what I have now in front of me and which I can enjoy, this is real. But here the vision is to get out of a perpetual bondage and return home back to God. That's shreyas, that's the ultimate benefit. And that's a whole process, which means rectifying a situation we have. Yes. So then the first step is to understand that this situation should be rectified. If we think that this situation is actually quite nice, there's no need for rectification, then we will not do anything. Yes. Oh, if I want to rectify, I want to improve my material circumstances. I agree with that. But here rectification means you should give up this whole circumstance, not improve it. That's not so easy. Yes. One has to rectify in such a way to put an end to this temporary situation. So that's the Sanatan Dharma, not the Naimitika Dharma, which is a circumstantial duty according to my position I have in a certain body, in a society, and then I identify with that, and this is my Dharma. If you think about it in this way, there are unlimited types of Dharma. So then Krishna says, Sarva Dharma, Parityaja, give it up. And just surrender unto me, rectify, and then everything will be okay. You become a member. You get my signature and you get a card and you know you're a member of the spiritual world. Yes, but you have to pay the membership fee. That's the problem. Yes, you have to. Anyway, so any questions, any doubts? You want to become a member?
Yes.
Sign up?
Yes.
Okay. But you have to read the small print on the other side of the contract.
I want a good bargain.
Good bargain.
The best bargain. Maharaj, when you mentioned before the Sarvadharma Parityaja, you said that it's not correct to interpret it actually to give up all the rest and there's no other dharma, as far as I understood.
Yes.
We have to also take care, or that's the Nimitika, but...
No, I was referring to the Sanatan Dharma.
Okay.
You don't give up Sanatan Dharma.
Yeah, but does it mean that when Krishna says give up all the other dharmas, we completely relinquish?
Yes, but you may not be able to do this immediately.
So yeah, I mean, that's usually the temporary dharmas, you said, related to the body or social position, are varnashram dharma.
Right.
And the question is...
Yes, and yes,
to what
the
extent,
answer is yes.
Because sometimes Prabhupada says that's useless, sometimes it's so important.
No, therefore I'm saying it may not be immediately. You know.
Okay, задачи въпросът е какво означава да изоставим всички други дharmi, освен санатан дharma. Тези други дharmi са свързани с тялото и социалния ни статус. И той каза, да, трябва да ги изоставим, но може да не трябва време за това.
Yes, this Svadharma which pertains to the body as to be a brahmana or kshatriya or even a woman or whatever, this dharma only exists as long as the body exists.
Brahmana или жена?
Само свързано с тялото и докато съществува тялото, съществува това.
So therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said this, what is it? Naham Vipra, Naham Narapatir, Naham Vaishyo, Nashudro. I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, not a Vaishya, not a Shudra, not a Brahmachari, not a Grihastha, not a Vanaprastha, not a sannyasi. And he was a sannyasi. But he said, I'm not all this. Which means, whatever is in human society, there's nothing beyond that. Well, beyond. But that's, anyway. Varn ashram. For varnas, for an ashram, I'm not. And we don't even have to include the uncivilized so-called human beings, that is understood. So then what am I? What's my identification? What is it? Gopi Bhartu Parakamalayo Dasa Dasa Nudasa. I'm the servant of the servant of the Krishna who is maintaining the gopis. So that's Jiva Swarup Hoin Nitya Krishna Das, eternal servant of Krishna. That's my real identification. So that's the real Dharma, that's the Sanatan Dharma. And all the other Dharmas, I'm not. I may be for some time, according to the circumstances I am in, but it's not something that will continue. So then even, let's say, that one continues to act within society and it looks like one is occupied according to a certain dharma, that's external. But internally one is acting on the Sanatan Dharma platform.
Дори да изглежда в обществото, че човек извършва някакви вътрешно е саната на дharma.
Yes, so you're leading a double life.
Водим следващия живот.
Yes, so like Arjuna,
Като Арджуна.
He's supposed to act as a kshatriya. He was even trying to get out of that, and Krishna said, no, you have to do this. This is you cannot avoid it anyway, so, but at the same time, no, tasmad kaleshu sarveshu ma anusmara yudyacha. So all the time you should think of me, and at the same time you should fight.
И като Арджуна, който всъщност трябва да води живот на кшатрия, но се колебае и Кришна казва и трябва да през цялото време да слиза мен.
Mayarpito mano buddhya mam evaishyasi samshayaha. If you do this, you apply your mind and your intelligence to me. At the same time, you're fighting externally, but then you will be conscious of me and you will remember me and you will come to me.
Независимо от това, че се биеш и си кшатрия, мисли за мен и има и съзнание за мен.
Накрая ще се върнеш.
So internally, he had given up all the dharmas and only Sanatan Dharma, and externally, he's acting to his swadharma as a kshatriya.
Вътрешно той приключил с всички дарми, но външно е кшатрия. Се бие.
That's my understanding. Even sannyas, as we know about the sannyas karma, or what is it? Yes, that not somebody who doesn't light a fire is actually a sannyasi, but somebody who has given up this mentality of taking the fruits, but everything for Krishna, for yagya.
Истинският саньяси е този, който се отказа от плодовете, а не този, който не прави йога, не прави яга.
So somebody who may be acting in the world may be more of a sannyasi than somebody who is wandering in the forest or living in a cave.
Човек, който все пак може да е в обществото и да не е в гората, може да е да е като саняси, отколкото да се отдава ученически.
Yes, because the real renunciation is this parityaja, giving up these false dharmas.
Основното е да се
откаже измислената дharma.
And mam ekam sharanam, one only takes shelter of Krishna, that's the Sanatan Dharma. So in whatever position you do that, that's perfect.
Единственото е да приемем подсъл при Кришна, това е единствената дharma. Всичко наред.
And to become even externally free from everything, that's like a very rare stage, even in the sannyasa, in the paramahansa stage, whereas avaruta, it's like, who is in that position in this world? Very few souls.
И много малко са тези, които външно са отказали от всичко.
That's, like the python who was lying on the floor. I mean, we cannot really imitate that kind of mentality.
Не можем да имитираме такъв начин на мислене, на поведение.
You know this yogi who's, he's just lying on like a python, just, If something comes to eat, I eat. If not, I don't eat. If this or that. And he explains how his position is. Sometimes I'm in a palace. I'm okay, I'm in a palace. And then I'm lying on the street. I'm lying on the street. I don't care. We cannot really imitate that. Yeah, when it's only absorbed in transcendence and the material world is doesn't really exist in one sense. No, we can't. So, therefore, yes, at the same time, you think of me and you perform your whatever duty you may have, and then you're perfectly situated. Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sisi Gauri Sai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Holiness, Bhakti Yoga.